Chapter 19 is all about emerging technologies. Spencer introduces the idea of emerging technologies with a discussion of the IBM 360 mainframe computer, built in the 1960s, and which you can see in this picture is a bit of a beast. That entire room is the computer, not exactly portable. Spencer asks us to compare that computer with our current computing device and to reflect on what a difference 50 years can make. And what about smartphones, as well as wearable computers embedded in artifacts like watches or glasses? The heart of this is the question: how can we, as educators, predict and prepare for these emerging technologies and address how they will influence learning, performance, and instruction? Spencer has some answers for us. One of them is read more science fiction. Turns out the comic book Dick Tracy predicted smartwatches all the way back in 1946, updating it with FaceTime back in 1964. Spencer claims it is worthwhile to pay attention to what science fiction writers and futurists are thinking about. Some of us don't have time for more sci-fi in our lives, so here's another resource Spencer offers us that I'm absolutely infatuated with. NMC, which stands for New Media Consortium, has been putting out a publication called The Horizon Report. Not only does this, as Spencer puts it, chart the landscape of emerging technology, but it specifically reports technology in regards to their influence on teaching, learning, and creative inquiry. The Horizon reports talk about technologies in terms of trends, challenges, and important developments. Each of these three categories is broken into three subcategories. Trends is broken up into near-term trends, mid-range trends, and long-term trends. An example of a near-term trend cited in the 2017 K-12 Horizon Report is the treatment of computer coding as a literacy. The same report gives the growing focus of using a variety of assessment tools to measure learning as a mid-range trend. And the report's example of a long-term trend is the emerging focus on deeper learning approaches, such as inquiry-based learning and instructional approaches that take into account the actual experiences of the students. Challenges are broken up into solvable challenges, difficult challenges, and wicked challenges. An example of a solvable challenge is creating authentic learning experiences where kids can incorporate real-world skills into the learning process. This is very doable, but requires our attention. An example of a difficult challenge would be teaching computational thinking, where students are able to solve problems by leveraging technology. This is doable, but takes more development, training, and creative thinking on multiple levels. An example of a wicked challenge would be to address the achievement gap. NMC describes wicked challenges as complex to even define, much less address. Finally, important developments are broken up into 1 year or less, 2 to 3 years, or 4 to 5 years. As of 2017, NMC stated that the time to adoption horizon of makerspaces in education was 1 year or less away. Side note, that's a picture from the makerspace that I run at the Children's Museum, so I'd say they're right. In the same issue, they stated that virtual reality's time to adoption horizon was 2 to 3 years away, meaning right around now. In the same issue, they stated that artificial intelligence time to adoption horizon was 4 to 5 years away. And that's a little bit harder to imagine for me. Spencer summarizes this chapter and much of the book very well when he says, "The position taken in this volume is that the nature of learning has remained relatively constant for thousands of years, although much more is now known about how learning occurs in the brain and how learning can be facilitated by appropriate activities and support. The point is not that learning is being changed by rapidly emerging technologies, but that our ability to best facilitate learning is changing and growing as we both gain a deeper understanding of how learning works and as we find ways to utilize technologies to address learning challenges. Some of the technologies, techniques, and strategies that Spencer explores to illustrate how our abilities are changing are personalized learning, which involves utilizing learning activities, assignments, assessments, and resources that fit individual needs based on automated learner analysis. Massive open online courses, which break down many of the accessibility barriers associated with continued education. Serious games, as well as gamification, which use the high level of engagement associated with playing games and connects it to a specific learning objective. And wearable devices, which breaks down barriers of ability and has huge potential in broadening our ability to assess a learner's zone of proximal development. The question is, when we know all these new technologies have huge potential to improve learning outcomes, why aren't these improvements happening? Spencer asks, why have so many educational technologies fallen short of predicted outcomes? He answers this by stating that the failures stem from issues of appropriate use, effective design, and the ability to take the technology to scale. He states that some improvements can certainly occur when there is support for design, training, deployment, refinements, and so on, but that in the world of education, that level of support is rare. It is a somewhat bleak outlook, but rings true in a lot of ways, and is exactly what we, as students of learning design and technology, are here to address.